So we've gone big time.
Well, so, this inspired me. Hold on. Let me now appear here.
You kind of
Look like him, right? I think. I'm trying to figure out the...
Same barber.
Yeah, and look, I now have a setup. I have the professional microphone that, if you remember, actually, we were doing a recap with our better halves. It didn't work well, but now I think I figured it out. What inspired me, and I'm gonna leave Joe Rogan in behind us. What inspired me, I don't know if you saw this, but Joe Rogan or one of his peeps tweeted that welcome to host the presidential debate between Trump and Biden. And I was like, why didn't we bid on that? Like, we could have hosted the presidential debate.
We would have crushed it. We would have crushed it. Someone would have fallen asleep.
And also just a little bit, it's like a weird spot. Actually, I'm gonna disable for the listeners. By the way, there's a Joe Rogan picture behind me. With all his messy stuff. So
inspiration.
Yeah, for a little bit of inspiration, but I think I'm gonna take it off because I have a new routine now. I was talking to Abhishek from Wealthy Therapeutics just yesterday, just to catch up, and he inspired me. He says, he does like 11 hours of standing. So I'm going to remove my background here, and I don't want to move everything around, but basically makeshift. I mean, I'm in my mother-in-law's garage still, so we're still in New Jersey. I literally put a box up and I put the laptop on top of the box, and now I have the microphone. So.
And how do you feel? How's the back?
Actually feels pretty good because I love to stretch normally, and this allows me to actually stand and stretch. But anyway, so maybe couple of things I noticed. I actually re-listened to a few of them because we kind of stopped the the family watch hour. I don't know. They got bored with it, I guess. Hopefully our viewers are not. So I've been running every morning and I actually listened to a few episodes. I have to say, we're damn enjoyable to listen to with our guests.
I love listening to myself.
Yeah, that's obvious. we all do. But I kind of just thought about it. So first of all, like every other episode, if not, it starts with Jim Joyce or it's a Wednesday.
Right. My rights or my 100% or right.
Exactly. But man, season 2. So
So this is the recap.
This is the recap. Yeah. The recap of season 2.
We've made it through 2 seasons, and because the whole idea of starting in this time, like time is like at a different level of like, we're in a different time continuum at the moment. So innovation is happening. 5 years of innovation is happening in 3 months. Seasons are happening in, seasons are happening in now. And
Jim, I love it. You're a true salesman. I thought you were just a CFO, but which is something I found out about you, that you actually have some financial skills. Pretty amazing.
Skill is, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how you want to do this. Our wives declined, our better halves declined for many reasons.
We have a force of nature joining us. So I thought we were debating whether we would do the recap ourselves, and I thought we would bring on Laura Hamilton. So Laura Hamilton is the head of North America for Health Beacon. I'll let her give her quick little background on herself, but she is, the ultimate connector. Like our social media following will go through the roof.
All right.
When it comes in here.
Love it.
And she's so disciplined that she would actually do homework and like listen to the shows and have some show notes. So it might help us get through the recap. And we get an outside perspective. Like we think we sound
true. True. Yeah, but to be fair, you're her boss. So let's see. But let's see.
We don't need it that outside. We don't need it that outside.
Just one other thing before we so she's already in the waiting room, before we let her in. One other thing, aside from aspiring to be the Joe Rogan show, the two of us, we are now part of the Health Podcast Network. So that was a pretty smooth process. We're in it.
How many people are on the Health Podcast?
To be honest, I don't know, but I browsed. I mean, there's like dozens and dozens of podcasts on there. So that's good. And then lastly, this is just a little bit of a shout out. So I did a blog a while back on a CGM monitor that I put in, and kind of, hey, is it going to be a fad for me? Am I going to be able to watch my metabolic health get better or not? And of course, it was a little bit of a fad. And so I actually just signed up for this Levels Health program. So they're doing this in US with the same CGM, but it's around metabolic health. So their CEO reached out, and, so I'm actually looking forward to it. I just got a notification right before this. This is why it's so exciting, because I do think the glucose can tell so much about and how to improve it. So not a pitch of it, just I was just excited about it.
But did they reach out to you because you mentioned it on social media that you were using it? And
so it's funny because we know one of, I think, their angel investors is Ari Tula, who I know. Him and I were chatting, and then he posted something, and I think Josh is his name, the CEO. He reached back out, and apparently he actually read my CGM blog, which so it's a small world, right? But anyway, so I'm on it, and you're gonna see me, nice and buff. But anyway, let's let Laura in.
So Laura Hamilton has the opposite relationship with Ireland that I have.
Well, we'll find out.
Laura Hamilton.
Hey there. How's it going, guys?
Oh, your sounds amazing, actually. I have all this professional stuff going on here for the first time to close off season 2. How do you feel to be a voluntold, not a volunteer?
Just another day here at Health Beacon, always ready to roll with the punches.
Right. No, I was saying I wanted to professionalize it, the podcast. So you've listened to a few of our podcasts, Laura, right?
Oh, I'm a long-time listener. I would say I'm an OG, subscriber.
Okay.
Really, the early days of COVID, loving my weekly shot of digital health therapy.
Oh yeah. We don't have the COVID.
Well trained at this stage.
But so before we go, so I just did an intro that you're the head of North America for Health Beacon, and that you are a force of nature, the ultimate connector. But I was thinking that you have, so this is your first foray into digital healthcare, working in Health Beacon, right?
Correct. Yep. A lot of kind of ancillary exposure, but this is my first dive into digital health.
Welcome.
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 Welcome. And then you have the opposite upbringing that I have, in the sense of or kind of the, so because I always describe myself as American Irish, because I grew up in America and then moved to Ireland, but you have.
Yeah, the opposite, exactly. So I was born in Ireland. I was born in Cork and emigrated to the US with my family when I was 5 years old. So grew up just south of Boston and went to college here, started my professional career here. Stayed connected to my Irish roots through a professional development networking society called the Boston Irish Business Association. So that link has remained strong. But then obviously having the opportunity to connect with Health Beacon 3 years ago when they were starting their descent into the US, it was great to kind of forge that relationship, and thus here I am today. So the Irish roots remain strong.
Yeah.
And since you've been there from the beginning, sounds like you're still loving it. Your excitement is still there.
I joined the company in
with the boss on.
I joined the company in November of last year.
Okay.
But I've known the team for some time. So I met them about 3.5 years ago when they were coming over to set up their US office. And at that time, I was the head of business development at Mass Bio, the Mass Biotech Council. And so Health Beacon was one of the companies that I brought into the mix. And so we have lots of things in common out of the gate. They happened to be in town around St. Patrick's Day. So in true form, I dragged them to a St. Patrick's Day themed life science networking event, and the rest is history.
We met at a bar.
So, yeah, what else? all the roads kind of seem to be leading to the bar, especially when it comes to talking about Ireland. Which let's see, maybe I'll make it there.
Before we go into, so Laura has the best onboarding story I've ever seen of any creator. So literally, like Laura was starting, we were trying to get her to join the company and recruit her in. So finally, she was involved in a kind of what's it called, a mission? What do you call it? A commercial
trade mission.
And she was involved in organizing a trade mission from Boston executives and government and officials to Ireland. And so on her first day in the job, she literally showed up to the office in a bus, a giant bus, and like to describe, like, every famous Boston business executive was actually on the bus. So she ran an event. On the first day of the job in the office. She's like, I'm like, where's your network? They're in the bus outside.
That's awesome.
Quite classic Laura Hamilton move, but started off with a bang.
Great. So you're in the recap.
So you're gonna lead us through this, huh? You've been voluntold. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm good on the fly. So
should we like put some timers on this? I don't know. We got 10 people to cover for the season.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We can just riff on it and say there.
Yeah.
And don't feel bad. Like, I haven't re-listened to all the episodes either, so I haven't listened to one of them. Sometimes during the episodes I faded off. Sometimes,
Yeah.
But okay. So I think we started off in a pretty epic way this time, right? Like, we started off with
totally
Big John Brownlee.
Yeah,
that's right.
John Brownlee kicking off season 2. I mean, what a stellar guest to bring in. I mean, for me, I think the thing I really resonate about this podcast was really the intent of why it was created, to connect with people, to see their personalities. And that's obviously a huge thing that's missing from all of our lives. And as we well know, that in this industry and in life sciences and in healthcare, it's those relationships that make things happen and make the world go round. So I think having John on episode 1 was fantastic, because we certainly not only got to hear about his business background, but his personal interests as well. I know I personally was captivated by the golf and Ryder Cup memorabilia in his home office. So
that's right.
He may be surprised to learn that I would be Team Europe, but maybe after this podcast, that if he hears this, it'll make more sense. But kind of great to hear about his company and how he progressed through many things to VidScript.
Did you know VidScript that well? You know John a little bit, Eugene, right?
No. It was my first time being kind of introduced to John and his background.
Yeah, for me, I met him once. I think we were trying to riff a little on our show as well. I met him once as probably at Health Excel event, and my biggest or interesting takeaway, like, he's just like a hardcore executor entrepreneur, right? Like, I think even some of the comments that he made around raising money from VCs is kind of easy. Raising it from customers is harder, right? And he's been plowing through in the last couple of his companies, just raising money from customers, which is the best way to do this, right?
Yeah, and I love his post, because his post was kind of an inspiration for me anyway, which was
that's right.
The Andrea Bocelli post around the music and the impact of it, and the fact that he was in Minneapolis with everything that was happening in Minneapolis and all that stuff. So it was a good way to start. Anyway, so that's one. We have to do a time limit on these.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not timing it per se, but so we go to what did I think the Health Excel podcast with Bill Taranto, they called him the wolf of healthcare instead of the wolf of Wall Street. We didn't call him that. I didn't want to copy Marty and team right off the bat, but.
Bill's epic, right? And I love Bill's opening, like, "Hey boys." I think he won us.
He's ready.
What do you think, Laura? What do you think of Bill? Did you hear him?
Yeah, he was great. He was ready with his shot glass, ready to go. An incredible story there as well. I just think hearing about the team that he's developed over time, but how they've stayed together as a team, and many of them were with him before the Merck opportunity. They were at J&J together.
Right.
So really enjoyed what he had to say. I wrote down a quote that he shared about kind of the purpose of his team that really resonated with me, which is, "Data is the currency to transact in future markets." So I thought that was really kind of a nice way to crystallize the power of the data we're curating.
He's so on message. I remember when digital health was just becoming a thing, he was saying that. He was like, data is the currency of which we'll transact or something. Yeah, that was kind of,
Yeah.
he's like stayed on that theme forever.
You'll need to send me that,
Yeah.
Laura,
Absolutely.
as I do my little recap. But I'm going to add to that the whole team thing. I do remember saying something to him that they're either afraid to leave him or they just love him so much, right? And I think it's a combination of both, we decided, but no.
And actually, because his mom is Irish too, because he looks, like with a name like Taranto, he's obviously, his dad is Italian. And his mom was like the CEO of like, I don't know if we got into that, but his mom was a huge executive back in the day.
No, I don't think we got into it. That's new news to me too.
Some major kind of apparel company, like Calvin Klein. I'm not trying to think of what the name of the company is, but like one of the major brands she ran, born in Ireland, so he has this kind of funny thing. And the fact that literally was the Livongo deal done at that stage? No.
We've lived through season 2, we lived through a couple of IPOs, mergers, IPO announcements. I think like Amwell, GoodRx, the Livongo Teladoc deal, the 25 push-ups a day.
And he said also during that podcast, he also said, what was it like? It was the first time he made an investment without meeting the company. And they were doing
That's true, yes. It was something in logistics. Yep, exactly.
Right. Okay,
but one thing, last thing on Bill, I know we got to move on. He actually is the one, I know we always called it, digital health therapy, a shot off, but I didn't really drink until Bill brought his shot glass. And now it's like, I'm trying to make it that every time we actually do this, I'm going to drink. So
good man.
try not to schedule any calls after this, but.
Right. Well, you don't leave your garage, so you're not a danger of the world. I have to go pick
That's true. All right. So now we're on to Mr. Shafi Ahmed.
Ooh, Shafi. So he brought in Lumi, did he?
I saw him post Lumi, and then we tried to do this, you and I, but I think on your poll on Twitter said that people actually want to see us, not our.
Right. Now Lumi's interesting. Is he an investor in Lumi?
I don't think so. No, he loves to try things, right? He's a.
Yeah. So he's talk about like a high bar here. Like he was performing these what the first Google Glass surgical operations, downloaded a bazillion times. Like he's the real man.
What I loved about Shafi when I first met him, I mean, there's a lot of people that talk about digital health and talk about doing something, and he was always on the front lines, right? Actually, inspiring younger generation to learn to become a surgeon, right? Actually doing things, right, with virtual reality, actually doing things with the Snapchat, like not bullshit, right? No, just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, moving in practice. What do you think, Laura? What do you got? You got him?
Yeah, I thought just the way he was talking about, we all are obviously familiar with Zoom fatigue. So bringing a new innovation to this space at this time to create kind of the empathy and human emotion and take some pressure off so you could go make a cup of coffee and continue your conversation and not seem disengaged. So I think we're going to see more transition to traditional old school phone calls, which is okay with me. I think we're getting to that point. But I think he also shared that although there is that fatigue, we really have to look at the benefits that this type of technology has enabled. So when he was talking about the Google Glass and the training, the surgical training, he was able to see where the viewers were coming from. And so there were students in remote islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean able to tune in, and they would never have that access and exposure to him as a world-class medical educator. So really interesting take.
There's a real philanthropy to him, isn't there? There's a real
yep.
He's kind of caring, kind of thinking about that.
No, absolutely. He is. It's others first kind of thing. It's really, yeah. He's super caring guy.
Cool. Okay.
Next one was I think a little bit of an experiment for both of us, right? Because apparently neither one of us have met Nicole up until our show, right?
Right.
Or wait, or no. Actually, I think she met you, but you didn't remember meeting her, right? That you're the stardom guy, right?
Right. In my own mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So she had reached out to, so obviously she was at a conference that I was at, but
What else is new?
I think she opened up, what did she open up with? Something about the doctors in bikinis?
Yeah, so she had talked about med bikini, which was a big thing going on. It's like, I don't even understand that. There was actually a study that came out that something about doctors or surgeons wearing bikinis, and that should not be allowed.
So she opened up with that, so she immediately got our attention, and then we kind of had to move on or we get into trouble. But she was, but she was epic. What do you think of Nicole? It's Nicole.
I just thought fantastic personality. You could see how she could do well transitioning from academia into industry, and taking this company forward. Really interesting too how they're using social listening and AI to report on adverse events. But I think what was a key takeaway was that she talked about that transition of being on the business side now and the importance of connections and listening to people. But that's not something that you're trained in university. And for so many technical and scientific roles, it's those soft skills that make such a difference with people as they're pursuing business opportunities.
Yeah, she was like, I remember we got caught up in that conversation, didn't we? Like we were kind of one of those, we kind of like, here was someone we didn't know, like what would it be and she just was,
That's spot on. And I loved her background, right? Like just, pharmacovigilance, immunologist. So it's like just from a timing perspective, also just like across. And I loved her because she also, I think we talked about, everybody uses real world evidence. And she kind of like, no, it's real world data. It's not evidence, right?
Oh, yeah. But also, it's interesting too, because at the time, do you find, Eugene, that like we're hanging out more with like people that are quite established now, just kind of the way, so actually like the fact that you're doing something new, Health Beacon's been around, we've been around for a little while now, obviously we're still new, but it's been around. So she was quite new in creating a digital healthcare company. And I was, I feel like the new gets, new doesn't, my favorite expression, the new needs friends from Ratatouille. That's my favorite. That's my favorite expression. Like the world doesn't need critics, and the world needs.
Love it.
Friends,
Love it. I'm going to quote you on that.
Exactly. You can quote. He's become like a radio broadcaster now with his mic and the thing.
Oh, totally. So professional.
Listen, I gotta, we gotta work on a spin-off. Or spin out. I don't know.
For season 3.
Exactly.
So next we had my good friend Manish Juneja, who's still, a little bit of update. I don't know if you guys follow him on Twitter. It's, he was feeling good after something like 140 days of this long COVID, where in the beginning, a lot of the docs were basically telling him it's bullshit, right? Like, but it's a thing. And long COVID actually been discussed at WHO, which I think Manish actually participated. And he was feeling better, but then he had a relapse. And so now it's, I think, day 150 something or 160. So still struggling through it.
I didn't give you the sign. Actually, I have the sign here.
Ah, damn it. You got it. You made it.
But yeah, no, I think he brought, like, because he's a total mad scientist, right? Like with his, his like sensors and his, the way he talks about things, a futurist, like lovely guy. But the fact that he brought this like whole patient experience and what he was going through, trying to figure out what was happening. What do you think of Manish, Laura?
Well, for me, this was the podcast this season that really resonated the most. I think it just brought such tremendous light to an issue that is not being reported on at all. I think in detail in the US. I've seen even personal accounts. So I think they're looking a lot at death rates and hospitalization numbers, but what we're not thinking about is people who get COVID and recover. However, they're stuck with these long lasting, crazy symptoms that their doctors don't have answers on. And that is quite frightening. And for me personally, has driven my own, caution around COVID. I think, people are thinking they're looking death rates and hospitalizations, but I think it's this population that get it, recover, and have these long COVID symptoms is frightening.
Yeah, I just saw actually today, I think Chrissy Farr tweeted that she was watching, if I'm not mistaken, the WHO or something else, a conference, and only now people are getting more and more concerned about the long lasting, negative impacts, even if he recovered. So, it's great that we had Manish. Wishing him all the best in recovery. Yep. We're going to, next guy that we had on is, I turned him into a Frenchman. I called him Jacob Laporte, but he's not.
Jacob Laporte was Laura Hamilton. You were the discussion point, Laura. Remember that was because you created the party that night, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, it all leads to an Irish pub at JP Morgan, right? I think we should leave it there. But yeah, we met Jacob and crew after a long day where we were, resting our weary feet and just having a cold beverage. And thus a great conversation started.
Yeah. What do you think of Jacob? What's your take, Eugene?
I mean, I love the guy. He's just awesome. I think the expansion of the biome, the Novartis biome. I mean, I think every big company is trying to figure out how to work with startups. I do think he's got the scientific background, as I learned about him but also I think the commercial head and I'd say an eloquence to him that he can kind of stride both, worlds a bit. So I truly enjoyed the conversation with him. And I do think that the biome will need to find its space within the organization. How, but the fact that it's expanding is a positive sign.
It's a cool name too.
Oh, I love it. I actually remember when I think Schwen came over there, and then after Schwen came in, they actually launched the biome, right? And they were all kind of co-founders. I think Mo, who is now at Almirall. And I remember, we're trying to kind of move, when I was still at Bayer, grants for apps. Well, it was no longer grants nor apps anymore. Well, G4A. And I was like, damn, biome, such a cool name, right? Like, we were trying to explain what G4A really means, right? Without the budget to rebrand anything. So, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that's, it's interesting how important the names are in these things, right? Like people don't talk about, I think you name companies, I think about my companies, I kind of try to name them quite
simple.
Simple, yeah.
Not to confuse others, but I don't know, I'd say 5 out of 10 people, because our company name is Your Coach Health. We get, how's my coach doing? Or how's my health coach doing? Or, it's all about, so maybe we should have named it My Coach, My Health Coach or whatever. But anyway, simplicity is key.
Yeah, it's this kind of idea, ours is like the beacon of health, so instead of the shark fin, which is a beacon of sickness, can now be a beacon of health.
And your coach, and your coach.
Yeah, your coach is easy for me. I get that one.
Right? I don't know. People get it, but I agree. Next one.
Jacob's one of these guys, just to give him the last time, Laura, we didn't, but Jacob's one of these guys that kind of move through subjects, like you're saying, like the eloquence, move through the science, move through the pharmaceutical service sector, move through the space, kind of seems to kind of navigate out through those things. So that's what I found. I could have listened to him for hours. Very eloquent.
Absolutely. And taking that on-ramp into Novartis should be more like Singapore as opposed to New Jersey.
That's also true.
Yeah, we had a good
That's
track.
Also true.
Yeah, is it New Jersey? Is it New Jersey? Is it Singapore? We're a little bit New Jersey trying to be Singapore. Is it California?
Totally.
As much as I love the green state, I'm ready to go.
Okay, what do we got next?
We got my brother from another mother, Milland. Nice. So he is the chief data officer at Celerity. And honestly, I find Jessica DeMassa introduced us a while back at XMed, and just a brilliant guy who knows his shit, just gets shit done. And I think it's one of those episodes that I think if we transcribe it, there'll be like a nugget in every sentence. And
yeah. I'm just trying to look at I when I was thinking about him, the way he was moving through his business and the way he was tackling that. We had 2 back to back with these heavy kind of scientific minds, and it turned into digital health officers and CDO. Is a CDO? Is that the title?
So he is a CDO, but I think chief data officer, not digital. But I guess I don't know.
Yeah, heavy. like heavy end, like he's like, we talk about like in terms of the digital health, like on the end of like the heavy research end, like true discoveries, how to use machine learning. Amazing guy, loved him. Seems like a real mensch. Like how long have you known him?
Must be, I don't know, probably 5 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah, 5, 6, something like that. 5.
What do you think of What do you think, Laura?
Oh, I mean, well, it's hard to find an Aussie that, doesn't tell a great story and inspire you. He inspired me to paint the background of my wall in my home office, though. I don't know, I might have to get sign off from the boss on that. I don't know how professional that will look. Inspiring his background, how he was kind of told as a young kid, like, hey, this is your future pathway. You're probably going to work in a department store, and that's going to be it for you. So he certainly has overcome a lot of obstacles, but I loved his insights in telling the story of the flagship venture operation, because that system is just such a powerful beast. Their ability to internally, discover and develop early stage companies and then spin them out at a rapid rate of pace is like no other.
So before we move on, I'm remembering at XMet, me and Millen were on the beach, and I actually was drinking cognac. So I'm going to take a shot to him.
He's not even a big drinker.
This is the best thing ever.
This is the season finale, right? So,
right. Okay, who do we got now?
So we're moving on to Steve Sanchez.
Oh, Stevie.
Hiding out in Belgium, doing push-ups.
Doing push-ups, joining the push-up challenge. Yeah, I think of Steve, like a lot of these guys, I think of him as this like kind of, I think when I was writing the little, comments was like, you feel like this real solid friend of digital health startups. That's how I think of them. Like, I've never gone to Steve with something, an idea, an opportunity for him to sit there and take it in, like think about it, consider it, come back with how you can help. That's how I think of Steve, kind of a real friend of the ecosystem, back to the new needs.
So I met him, I don't know if we got into it on the actual show. I'm looking at Laura. But I met him when I first moved to Amsterdam, started the Health 2.0 chapter. And I think it was like, I don't know, maybe the third meetup that I was hosting. We actually ended up hosting it at PHS, which is the PHS Capital is Steve and Eric's fund. And to your point, I mean, this was 9 years ago. Right. So this is still kind of early-ish on, right, in the whole digital health. And he was super supportive. I remember him coming, kind of listening to a lot of the startup pitches. And lastly, on that, it just, I love how, to your point, he's also like a builder, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm going to judge and invest money or not. Like, he brainstorms with the startups. For full disclosure, he's also an angel investor in your coach. So that's a side note.
Sorry, man. What do you think? Have you met Steve before, Laura? Have you been?
No, seems like a really incredible person, and certainly someone I look forward to, like so many others I'm getting introduced to now, but meeting them in person as soon as it's safe to do so when we're back on our conference and travel schedule. But I was actually on vacation that week, so I caught up after the fact. But fun fact that I learned on that podcast, I didn't realize you had broken a rib. Jim, bike accident.
Was that when I broke the rib?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that's kind of a recurring theme for you as you go through a funding round. You're having some sort of injury or ailment.
That's the joke. I describe funding. I broke a rib. Yeah. I broke a rib. I describe funding as it's kind of like the Highlanders. Where they're all there can only be one or something, and they kill. But every time they kill another one, a little piece of them gets lost. They're like a little bit of your soul. Every time I go through a funding round.
I thought it's just your investors are like punching you, but
right. No, but I feel like a little bit. It's just isn't it like just a force? Like you just got to go through it, and you're not the same afterwards.
Yep.
For me, I broke an ankle. I broke an ankle playing basketball on the last one.
On the last funding round?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's a trend now. All right.
You were hobbling around JP Morgan.
Yeah, I don't have investors like Steve. I have lovely investors.
Cool. All right. Next one was Powerhouse. Powerhouse. And I think you met her, or no, also neither one of us, I think, met her in person, right?
Never met her in person.
Melinda Decker, I mean, we had such a blast. And somebody actually commented, I think it was Amir Kalali's like, I can't believe you have not met her before. And I also cannot believe I've not met her before. Like,
right. But instantly you had like 1,000 connections. But she reminded me of like a Laura Hamilton here. Like just this kind of, total presence, kind of walked into the call. She was like physically seemed to reach through, like seemed like she knew us forever. Like touching.
Yeah, it was so easy.
I love the kind of navigating through pharma, like the kind of going through and talking about like, her as a young kind of consultancy person ending up in a manufacturing division versus the kind of marketing division versus, and the best line she had was the extroverts, or one of the best lines. She had great lines, but like she was like, the extroverts talking to introverts during this whole thing.
Yep. And she can talk to the wall.
Right? The extrovert going to the introvert. We are not okay. We are not okay.
I loved her. She's like, getting budgets for brands is easy.
Right.
I'm like, cool.
Yeah. So what do you think, Laura? What do you think?
I mean, agree completely. Absolute powerhouse, and another person I really look forward to meeting in person and just understand the cross-functional kind of background that she got in her training as she came through pharma. But when I meet people, particularly in industry, I think it's all about relationships. I always try to find some sort of personal or connection point or something in common. And she mentioned the wine program at UC Davis, and fun fact is that back in the day, I literally right out of undergrad, I had reached out to them because that was something I was interested in. And so I, as a result of that act, got mailers, for years afterwards. But it just that we have that in common.
So it's deeper than just drinking a wine glass.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Or a glass of wine.
Yeah,
I must have had a few drinks myself now.
Yeah, it was a mutual friend. It was Nancy Fallon. It was Nancy Fallon from Novartis that kind of introduced. She said, "Oh, you have to have her on." So we got on. And it was similarly, we had a Zoom call. I felt like I knew her for 100 years. Not that I felt like I knew her for a long time. Not that old.
So last but not least, that was just last week. Leonora O'Brien. I had a blast. I mean, and the whole sort of like PBM that brought me back kind of 10 years back, the pharmacy benefit management, and the fact that even she spent some time with Silesia and My World that like connected me to her pretty closely. I felt good.
Yeah, you were geeking out on the whole pharmacy.
Yeah. The drug interactions and.
Right. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, another very interesting background, and learning about areas that are relevant to us and the world that we're operating in as a company. Also loved that we got a glimpse of her personality, and she shared the fact that she self-taught piano. And I had to Google Statler and Waldorf, but laughed because I know exactly who they were, and I always just would refer to them as the two lads from the Muppets up in the balcony. But now we've all.
I know you're being nice because I would have used the two old lads.
But it is in the way the Zoom that went on top and the person down. That's too funny. No, that was great. You had the Statler and Waldorf. And so funny, Leonora was in the pub in JP Morgan the same time Jacob Lavort was there that you were there, Laura.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, wow. I'm pretty convinced that was the case. It could be wrong.
Wouldn't be surprised.
So next season we're going to try to diversify from that bar. Is that what we're trying to say?
Basically, it was like just a group of people. But so Leonora was like, it's funny. I've known her over the years. So many different events, so many different things. Was it the first Irish? Because I'm obviously not born in Ireland. She was the first. Well, you are here, but like Irish entrepreneur. Did we have another Irish entrepreneur?
I'm looking at this. I think this is the first one.
Yeah,
I mean, we need to look through all the names. I'm trying to rewind back in season 1.
Yeah,
I know that was like last month, but
last month.
Laura, before you jumped on, Jim was trying to explain like our reasoning why do season back to season, because all the timelines have shortened and decades of things that happen in just 10 days. But whatever, we're just having fun with it, right? So
Accelerated, yeah.
I thought, but also this whole, like, she worked for the regulator for the farm,
that's right. Yeah.
That's a pretty big, to imagine working for a regulator and then going directly into a startup. And
I just loved her, like, boom, boom, boom. Like, I remember, because you know how we start, and then, we want to make sure that our guest is in the waiting room already. And she's like, I'm going to hop on and 2 after or 3 after. I loved it. Like, the precision medicine, but not in that context.
She's been at it for a while. But great way to end.
So, Laura, how did you enjoy this?
I mean, I was just honored to be included in the pod.
It was
Thank you for having me.
So it sounds like you did volunteer. It's not about being voluntold.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, you could have said no. I wouldn't have you could have said no. Because I gave you lots of warning.
What? This morning? You woke up to it?
No, I haven't even talked to Jim today. So talk about being meticulously unproduced. Like, this is it.
Like Laura and I.
How we roll.
We're a good team. Laura's always so prepared, and she's always there, and I'm kind of.
Listen. It's about balancing each other out, right? Yeah. On that note, so Laura, thank you for doing a lot of that and leading us through it. Because honestly, I was not prepared. I'm like Jim, but I am very, very much looking forward to season 3, which starts next week.
Yeah.
we're not, no rest for the restless, right? And I think I was trying to do, I'm really, like, we have actually quite a lot of it already booked out and list, but I'm actually looking forward to roughly episode 6 or 7 to an amazing guest. Not that all the other ones are not amazing. I just literally heard back this morning. I'm not going to disclose it. This is like a teaser, subscribe now, people, be notified, right? And actually, last thing, because I'm going to bust his chops always, I actually do think that you and I are going to host the presidential debate before Vishal Gulati agrees to be on this show.
Right. Bro, it's Vishal. He's giving us a hard time.
He's tough to get. Very tough to get.
He's an important man. He'll be a great guest when we get him. We'll get him.
We'll get him.
He can outrun the seasons.
on that note, thank you. It's a wrap for season 2. Laura, amazing. Good to meet you virtually. So close and yet so far. And then we'll go.
Now, this is her official, like, her coming of age as a top digital health executive for Health Beacon, being on, the world's most famous unproduced podcast created during the pandemic.
That is true. In digital health, specifically.
In digital health. All right, guys, I got to run to pick up.
Yep.